So
Hold
welcome, everybody.
Yeah.
This is Muhammad Atikur Rahman Ahad. I'm from University of Dhaka, Bangladesh, and currently I'm at Osaka University, Japan. So it is our great privilege to have Professor Saifur Rahman. He was the president of IEEE Power and Energy Society in 2018 and 2019. And he's a wonderful guy, and I know him for a longer period. And he's such a wonderful, amazing, and very helpful for the young researchers and young fellows as well. Very humble, very kind, which is very important for big people to help and guide others. So it is our great privilege to have him, and we really thank him for his time in the early morning for him. And we have more than 700 participants who did the registration to join the webinar, and people are joining one after another. So we'd like to continue, and it's to Professor Saifur Rahman. Please start your talk on how to write an effective technical paper. It's wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for your kind time for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ahad. Appreciate it. And good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. So I am happy to be coming in front of you through this webinar opportunity. The title is How to Write an Effective Technical Paper. We know this. The key word is effective. We all write papers and many don't get accepted. So this is the whole idea. I'm going to hopefully, by the time I finish, you'll have enough ideas, background information to know how to present your results, your paper, so that the chance of accepting is higher than you have experienced in the past. Okay, let's move on then. Now, first of all, this is me. We have, I said that already from his introduction. My background is in publication. I was the VP publication of Power Energy Society in the early 2000s, long time back. Then I was VP of publication, all of IEEE. I've served on many publication boards, so I am speaking from my experience as publications. And also I was the chief editor of 2 journals. I have also published a lot of papers. Anyway, let's move on. So this is an example of what I have done. I gave a seminar like this to the IEEE Power Energy Society some time back, and that's available if you're a PS member for free on the PES website, which is this picture here. Now, let's start here. I have a website, srahman.org, where I have posted many of my lectures already. If you go to the page called webinars on this website, you'll see all my recent talks given there. If you go to media page, where I have posted my video recording of many lectures. The lecture I'm giving now, I gave it one similar to this in 2015 in London. That was recorded by IEEE TV, and it is available from the same site. If you go there, you'll see this presentation 5 years ago with some modification I'm presenting today. So many ways you can find this information. Somebody asked me the question earlier, Sarah, I think, asked the question, the recording be available? Yes, but you have already a video recording, which is more than today's audio recording from this IEEE website that I'm showing now on the screen. So you can look at that as well. Okay, moving on down. So this is the background. Now, who is the audience? I gave a talk in India some years back in Bangalore. I gave my talk, came down the stage, and people surround me asking a lot of questions. The point is, people are shy asking questions when I'm on the stage. When I'm among them, they feel more, quote unquote, secure questions. My point is the following. Today, I don't see you, so don't feel shy. Nobody sees you. So please either raise your hand or send a chat box question, because unless I hear your questions and comments, I don't know how much you've understood. So that's my point behind showing this picture? Please ask questions, don't be shy when I'm done. Good. So now the question is about the paper now, not the question. Why are you writing this paper? Two questions. Are you writing because your professor told you to write? And that happens. Why that happens? Professor tells you, Sarah, you have done good work. I want you to publish, write a paper for a conference. You write it because he told you or she told you. One reason. Other reason is you want to show the world your work, which you believe is very powerful, useful, impactful. You write a paper about this. Regardless of your reason for writing, we'll see what you should write, how you should write it. Now, who writes papers? Engineers, scientists, educators from companies, academia, universities, government write papers. Also, students write papers. Many of you today are students. So go to a conference and let the audience know what you have done. This is very important. Listen carefully. I tell my students do the same thing. If you go to a conference, make your presentation, you get some feedback from the audience, which is very important because you may not have thought about some aspect of your work, others see from different perspectives. What that does for you gives you some ammunition to think more about your work and rewrite in a more explicit way. That way, you are more visible. Keep that in mind. So then the question is, this is very important. You are the author, you are writing the paper, but you are not the audience. Before the audience comes to the picture, you have editors, reviewers who will look at your work and decide whether to publish it. This is very important. So what are they looking for in your paper? If you know that, you can target the paper so that you answer those questions in advance. First of all, they ask the question when the chief editor reads the paper. They're asking the question, is this paper appropriate for this journal? Example, we have a journal in our society called IEEE Transactions on Smart Grid. You wrote a paper on machine design. If you send this machine design paper to the Smart Grid journal, they would say it is not appropriate, obviously, right? So make sure when you write a paper before submitting to a journal, you not only look at the journal name, look at some papers in the journal, making sure the papers they're publishing now are in line with what you have done in your paper. That's the appropriateness issue. Scope, meaning you have done some work, but that is not big enough scope for others to benefit from. I'll give you an example later on, and level of work. Fine. Very important, written clearly. This is original material that means not published anywhere, and you are addressing an important problem. That doesn't mean it has to be all new. It can be extension of previously published work. Extension, not the same work. And we'll talk about that later on. It must have valid methods and rationale. In our community, I'm working on, let's say, electric power load forecasting. So we know in the community what techniques are used by researchers to develop models for electric power load forecasting. If you create a new model, which nobody has heard about, unless you have convincing proof, they would not believe you. So this is important. As engineers, we like illustrations, tables, figures, graphs. So make sure you present your results more in a graphical form than in a text form. Very important. And of course, finally, you must have enough references in your paper so that your paper can be in the proper context. Very important. Now, what happens with your paper once it's submitted? IEEE now. The chief editor gets the paper after some things happen first. What are those things? This is a mechanical thing we do. First is we call content match check. we have a program called iAuthenticate that's automatic. What does it do? As your paper goes online to our platform, it picks your paper and sends it through this iAuthenticate platform check. What it does, iAuthenticate has 5 to 6 million. Can you hear me? Yeah, 5 to 6 million papers, articles, dissertations in that database. They'll check every sentence in your paper against what is in the database and flag for me. I'm the chief editor. Different color coded. This paper from author X has these 5 lines common with that paper. I can see them side by side. They give you a whole report. Then if I see your paper has a lot of content matching with many other people, your paper will be rejected without review. Very important. I'm seeing some people raising hands, so please wait till I finish before we can answer questions. Second is banned author list. We at IEEE have a list of banned authors, meaning some people, for various reasons, have been behaving badly, whatever it is. I'll give you an example later on. We put them on a banned author list. Why is it important? You are writing the paper with help from some other people as a group, and you have 3 other co-authors. It happens always, 3 other co-authors. One of them, you don't know very well, we're working together, is on the banned author list. Because of that person being on the banned author list, your paper will be rejected because you are in bad company, literally. So be careful whom you make your co-author. Otherwise, you'll be wasting your time for nothing. That's first. Once that check is done, it is not from banned author list, number 1. Number 2, report says your paper does not have a lot of common content with somebody else, done. Then the EIC physically sees the paper, chief editor, physically paper. He or she reads it and assigns to an associate editor. Why is that important? Because the editor is looking after many areas. He cannot be expert in everything. For example, our journal called Smart Grid has 50 plus editors, 50, because it is such a broad field. Then the chief editor sends your paper to an editor who is an expert. He or she looks at the paper, assigns 5 or more reviewers to make comments on your paper. Please mute your audio, please. So then the reviewers see the paper, they're experts, while 5 or more. IEEE policy requires that at least 3 reviews must be used to make a decision. We send to 4, 5, 6 people, we get 3 or more. That's good enough. That's why 5 number shows up here. Once the reviewers read your paper, makes comments, they send it to the editor. Editor looks at the review comments from multiple reviewers. He or she will use those comments and his or her own opinion and make a recommendation to the chief editor, EIC. Recommendation. What is it? Accept as it is, revise and resubmit, or reject. Accept is understood as it is. What is revise and resubmit? The editor in charge will see the reviewer comment saying, it has done some good work, but it has some flaws. Something needs to be done in more detail. Those are the comments coming through to the editor. He or she will put that together, and in this case, make a recommendation, revise and resubmit. Goes to chief editor. He or she will look at these, make her own judgment, and make a final decision that will go to the author, to you. That's how the process happens. That is why it takes 2 months. You know why that takes 2 months. That's the process. You know the EIC knows you because you have communicated. You don't know the reviewers, you don't know the editor. They are to you invisible. So that's why we keep the confidentiality. Now, why editors, reviewers reject papers? First, of course, very simple. Content is not good fit for the publication. Rejected, not relevant. Next is there are serious scientific flaws in your paper. What is a flaw? Your results are inconclusive, meaning you said it is good because of this. You did not back up with enough results to come to that conclusion. That's important. That is why I recommend before you write the paper done, but before you send the paper to a journal, have a colleague who is not a co-author, have a colleague read your paper and let him or her comment on your papers usability. That's not so then the issue is what happens to the paper. You clean it up, and then they would not say inconclusive results. That's the issue, number one. Number two, doesn't happen much in our community, fraud. What is fraud? Some people will say, I have gotten results from this experiment, and based on the results, I can draw the following conclusions. It happens in healthcare industry quite a bit. What really happened, these people did not do the experiment. They made the data up. That happens. That if it's caught, that's really bad shape. So don't go there. Next is paper is written poorly. Bad grammar, bad English, not difficult, not easy to understand. Or the paper does not address a big enough problem. What is big enough problem? If you are very focused on a very narrow area, which does not have much validity outside this field, that could be reason for not accepting the paper. Or most of the work was previously published. Example, as I said before, you went to a conference, gave a paper, and came back, fixed few things, and sent to a journal now. Because of you got published in a journal material that was partly presented at a conference. Answer is yes, but what has to happen? When you come back from a conference, you have been given some feedback. Most likely what you need to do, run more experiments, get more new data, and write a more complete paper with different perspectives. That's very important. So this is the issue, different perspective. Typically we see in IEEE, your journal is fine, but the journal version must have 40% new content. Important. 40% new content will be in the journal version. Journals very high quality, 10 or more impact factor, journals 1.5 impact factor. So depending on the journal's reputation, the paper quality has to be relevant so that it is working properly. Because of the way it is written, because of the way the results were presented, they misunderstood. Unfortunately, it was rejected from the beginning. Do not rush into it. Write the paper, have a colleague read it, make comments, clean it up, and then go to the journal. Now let's get to the more mechanical thing, structure. Paper must have these 8 sections: title, abstract, keywords, introduction, methodology, results, discussions, findings, conclusions, references. You must have those. Make sure you have those lined up. Title. Title is very important. These days, very few people read paper copies of a journal, very few. You read this online. Typical practice. How does a search engine, Google, find your paper? You say, I want to know about load forecasting. You put that in. Google gives you 200 papers. How do they find it? 2 ways. One, it scans all the titles of articles and finds a match. Also, it scans the keyword list on your paper. I'll talk about that in a second. Based on that, your paper is found, because you write the paper so that others can find it, use that knowledge. That's why it is important to make the title crisp, concise, use keywords, avoid jargon, meaning don't use words that are not widely usable in your community. So that's first thing. Typical examples here. Look at the one at the bottom first, the red cross mark. I saw a paper with this title, A Better Approach of Managing Environmental and Energy Sustainability via a Study of Different Methods of Electric Load Forecasting. Load forecasting paper. They put those words based on their understanding what they did. What is a no-no in a title? No opinions. He or she, the author here, give opinion. Why? They said better approach. Better is not a fact. It's an opinion. It's not a fact, right? It's opinion. You think it's better. I may not think so. Do not do that ever. Do not put opinions in the title. So what I did, I read the paper. I liked the presentation, but the title to me was very complicated. So I wrote back to them that what I believe you are saying, a human expert-based approach to electrical peak demand management. See how simple it is compared to the 1-3 line at the bottom? And they liked it, changed it, and that's fine. Then the question is, how many words should you put in the title? How many words? I say try to stay below 10, maybe 8 is better. So this is more precise. That's the title. Abstract. Abstract is a condensed standalone version of the article. The whole paper has to be condensed in 250 words. Not easy to do, but that's what is read by many people. If you go to any IEEE paper today, anybody goes there to Google, they'll give you the title and the abstract, free of cost, Because abstract is how people judge papers. Once you read the abstract, like the content, then you can buy it or download from university database or write to the author to give you the paper. Possible, but abstract is the one which is globally circulating now. What you should put in the abstract, I got 4 boxes here. The upper right box green, what you did, of course, how the results were useful in your opinion. On the left-hand side, the purple box, one is how they're useful, why they're useful. Example, you did a load forecast paper. An engineer in a power company needs the load forecast for next 24 hours so that they can schedule their generation. That's why it is useful. And then why you did it, because you want to make the result usable to other people. Fine. Abstracts. Again, focus at the bottom part. Do's and don'ts. See, I put few words in red. We explain, we describe, we comment. Never use first tense in a paper, never. He said, we explained, don't say it was explained. And typically we use present tense most of the time, but past tense can be used also. That's the difference between a good and not so good abstract. Next is keywords. Again, keywords are highlighting the content of a paper. The load forecast, 24-hour forecast, statistical methods, then talk about the load and generation match, all those. They must be logical, applicable to the paper, very important, searchable. What does searchable mean? The words you're using in the keyword section, they must be known words. If you put something very unknown word that is you thought is relevant, nobody knows that word. So that keyword would not be visible to anybody else except you. So don't do that. Searchable means known words. Specific to the paper, of course, and appropriate to the level of your paper. That's the keyword issue. Next, introduction, very important. It is a description of the problem you have researched. It should have multiple steps, the 4 blue boxes. First, you say, what is known generally about this topic. That's what you call literature search. That is always important. Then you talk about your presentation, your model in the context of what is known already. Known meaning people have done work on load forecasting, they get results. It takes half an hour on a computer. That's a fact. That's a context. You have found a technique which can give results in 5 minutes, not half an hour on the same laptop. That's your contribution, your hypothesis. Then you prove it, and so on. Finally, you say article is organized in the following way. It has introduction, model, methodology, results, discussion, and so on. Write those down. Size, no more than 2 pages. Typically in IEEE journals, 8-page limit. So don't spend a lot of time reviewing hundreds of references and fill out the text. So 1 to 2 pages is fine. Methodology, your method must have text, of course, but back it up with tables, graphs, figures. As engineers, we want visible presentation more than text word presentation. Okay, now, next section, results and discussion. Very important. Results are numbers, results. You don't give any comment on results. These are, I found these errors or these matches or these differences in my forecasting algorithm. Results, facts. Discussion is, what do those numbers mean? I say 5% error. That's a fact. What does it mean? Well, 5% is not bad if it happens at midnight, because that's the time when people are not stressed to serve the load, midnight. But if the 5% error is at 4 p.m., when the load is very high, generation is tight, you cannot be wrong. So that's the discussion part. If you can show you got some errors, but those errors are happening during non or unimportant periods, then it's not a bad thing. If errors happen when the system is tight, then it is not very useful. That's the discussion part. Okay. Conclusion of the paper. Conclusion has your comments. You explain what the research has achieved, not just numbers, as it relates to the problem you started with. Again, load forecasting problem, you want to know there is a load for the next 24 hours, hour by hour, how good it is, when the errors happen, and when, because it is happening in your case, during unimportant hours, that is very good for others to use. And of course, put a summary of your findings, error, and all that. Also very important, you not only present your results, you also mention, I did not do the following things, because you cannot solve the world's problem in one paper. If you do not say that, the reviewer might point out, you missed this point. That's a negative for your paper. However, if you say it up front, I know I missed it because I limit my paper to the following things. I didn't go beyond my boundary. Then they know you are aware of the other things that could be done. Sometimes what we say, this is the missing part, this can be done by somebody else, or I can do it myself later on. That is good for somebody else reading the paper. They know what work has been done, and that gives them an opening to do more work, because this is added value to the work you have presented. References, first question comes up, how many references? I say stay below 30. That's about 1 page or so. But more importantly, pick the references which are relevant to your work and put the author title, publication name, publisher, year published, volume, and page numbers. That's the citation data, right? That's normal. What is new today, because many papers are now being published online before they go into an issue of a journal. It takes time to go into a paper issue. So you have no volume number, page number. How do you cite the paper? For that reason, once paper is accepted, goes to the online platform, the issue DOI, Digital object identifier. There's a unique number that stays with the paper for its life. You can find a paper 10 years old without going to the journal citation index. You go to the DOI number. So that is more practical now. Fine. Then the typical question I get, who should be on the authors list? Well, depends on what you are talking about. Talk about a report done by a group of researchers, maybe 5 people at a university department, and they did a project, fine. And the project is done, results are good, they have to submit a report to the sponsor. They write a 30, 40 page report. All of them are authors because all the work done. Then you take a piece of that work that is you believe very unique and decide to write a paper on that piece of the work, not the whole report anymore. Good. You got 5 people on the project team. Not all 5 are interested or willing to write a paper on that narrow topic. You have 3 people that are interested. That's a subgroup. Those 3 people will do some things, like we said, reference check, discussing the methodology, results, all that. Those are the 3 people who will be the author list, in the author list. So my simple answer is include any or everybody who have contributed in the writing of the paper. That means all the authors who are on the paper must have written some part in the paper, not just talk about it. Writing, that's the word author means. Fine. Ethics. Different kinds of misconduct. One is very simple, conflict of interest. Conflict. What is a conflict? You did the research based on funding from a company. It's perfectly fine. You write a report, write paper as well. But in the paper, you should not praise the company. The company is so good. They have been the leader in the world on this topic. Don't say those things. Yes, you'll acknowledge their support, financial support, at the end of the paper in a section called acknowledgement. That's fine, but do not praise the company in the paper because they paid you money. Don't do that. Second is plagiarism. You copied other people's work. You can copy some part of it, which is called quoting the source. You can put 2 sentences within quotation mark. That's fine, but do not copy a whole page from somebody else. That's not acceptable. Missing author attribution. Missing author attribution. If you have discussed your work with somebody else outside your group, and they have given you some ideas, but they have not written in paper on themselves on that topic. They are not authors on paper. They give you ideas. What you should do to be fair to them, you can put their name in the section on acknowledgement, not an author, acknowledgement section that they got. They have some ideas that shared with you. Don't have to quote the source. Now, ethical publishing, we talked about this. Plagiarism, very important issue. People miss it because they are not careful. You should cite and separate any text you copied from somebody else. You can do that with references citation, that I got this sentence from this author because it's relevant to my work. Perfectly fine. Then the question is how much? Can you copy 1 sentence, 1 paragraph, 1 page? 1 page, not for, no, for sure. 1 page is too much. Typically 2, 3 lines is okay. But in the same case, you must put that in quotation mark and give the citation and see what you copied from that source. IEEE has some policies. I give you an URL on the right-hand side. You go there, see more details about IEEE policy. Fine. Some more. As I said already, the author must submit work that has not appeared elsewhere for publication. Of course, not copying. Again, I said conference paper, already published. But you're submitting a paper that is partly from that conference paper, not all of it. Fine. More important is the second one. The paper you're submitting should not be under review in another refereed publication. What does it mean? Many people, especially PhD students and young faculty, are very anxious to get the paper published, which is perfectly fine. They say, well, it takes 9 months to a year to get a result from this journal. So I'll take a chance. I'll submit. Safi, no. I will submit same paper to 3 journals, 3 at the same time, and see who comes first. The journal B came first, ABC. I take that acceptance, tell A and C, I have an acceptance. Please withdraw my paper from your 2 journals. You can do that, but look how it looks from the viewpoint of the journal A and journal C. They have been spending time and energy reviewing your paper. They have assigned reviewers, editors. The work has been done. Now, halfway through, you're telling them, forget it. That's not fair. So please do not submit the same paper to more than 1 publication at a time. Otherwise, you become blacklisted. This author, and people talk to among each other, journal editors and reviewers talk to each other. Do not create a bad name for yourself, especially your young researchers. You must cite previous work. We talked about that. Also, if you are updating your conference paper for a journal publication, you must mention in a summary, not in the paper itself, in the submission platform, summary to the editor that this paper that I'm submitting now is extended version of paper that was presented in this conference. Then they have no problem with that. You must inform the editor upfront. Now, where to publish? IEEE has 3 places or 3 types of journals you can publish in. One is the traditional journal. We all know this. For example, our Smart Grid journal. Those are the places you submit, paper gets accepted, is published, done. How does a user find that paper? They go to a library, go online, use some kind of subscription model. Maybe they pay money, or they are a university user. The university has paid money to the publisher. Fine, that's called traditional journal. Second is open access. Everything the same except is reverse. Once the paper is accepted, the author is asked to pay some money to cover the cost of publication review. All that issue has to be done in advance. And there's a fee. I'll talk about that in a second. That is called open access. Third is hybrid. Many journals that we have in IEEE are primarily traditional, meaning no fee, but they also publish some articles which are open. That means those authors have paid fee upfront. Examples. For our case in IEEE, open access publications, right here. This is IEEE as a whole. IEEE has 40-some societies, almost 200 journals and magazines, 200. All of that is under one umbrella called IEEE Access Journal. One journal, IEEE Access. It has many journals, hybrid journals. That's one place you can go. Or our Society of Power and Energy has our own open access journal called OA Journal of Power and Energy Technology Systems. It's our journal, PS Journal. There you can get papers on smart grid, machines, power systems, then talk about renewable energy. All of that is one place. We charge a fee of $1,350 to publish open access in this journal. Why that is useful? If it's open access, then the user doesn't have to pay any money to read your paper, right? As a result, more people read your paper. And more people read your paper, they cite your paper, you're in the community, your value goes up. This professor, this student is highly cited. That's one reason. However, many countries have difficulty paying that much money, many countries. Many of you are from those countries here. What we have done, we have said we'll put some money set aside to subsidize people who cannot pay that much fee for the open access paper. So just so that you know, if your paper is accepted and get a bill from the publisher, us, PES that is, that you have to pay this much to get a paper published, you can write an email back to the chief editor. Sir, I am happy it's been accepted, but I'm not able to pay that much because our university has no funds to do that. You can ask for them to make it zero, or you can say, I can pay $200. Put something. If you pay something, you have a better chance of being accepted than not paying anything, because we have many papers waiting to be published. So that's how we deal with this situation. Then the question is full open access. Option 2, full meaning is IEEE wide, not just PES. We have created a subsection within the IEEE Access Journal for PES related papers. That's already started this year. Fee is higher because IEEE charges higher fee, but that's your choice. Fine. Impact factor. Impact factor comes from journal citation review, and they will issue impact factor. What is impact factor? That means how well papers in a journal is being used by other people. Not you, the author. This journal impact factor talks about the journal, not about the author. So how many papers in the journal are cited by other people in their papers? That's why if you have a highly cited journal, its impact factor goes up because many people are citing. So that's one issue. The problem is it takes 4 years for a new journal to get the impact factor started because of the way it is surveyed. So what happens in the 4 years? Well, I have other ways to judge the journal's reputation. One is, how do I know that a journal is well established or well higher quality? I look at the board of editors of the journal. If the board of editors are very famous people, then you know they have high standards. Impact factor means standard is high. If you go to a journal with high standards, publish your paper, most likely more will read your paper. We want that to begin with. That's why we talk about other ways to judge a journal's quality before impact factor is issued. IEEE also does something else. We count number of downloads. As I said, you are a university researcher, you can access all of IEEE library called Explore using university license. That happens. That means you can read freely without paying any fees. If a paper is good, many people will download it and read it. That is one index, one example of how the paper is received by the community. Second is patent citations. When you do a patent application, not everybody does it, the patent lawyers look for the one submitted, the patent is submitted, and compare with other work that has been done. So they know the work is original. That is also one way to see how paper is good. Follow-up steps. Finally, this is the set of steps you'll do. You heard from me what I said all the way now. This is a summary. You are a group at a university doing some research. You have 3, 4, 5 team members. No problem. You discuss among the team members what should go in a paper that you are thinking about. Fine. Before you go too far, you must know what else has been published already. There's a reference check. We did that. Then another person on the team can take the responsibility of writing about the experiment. Second person can talk about discussions, results. Third person can write the conclusion. All that's done, not one person doing everything. Divide the work among 4 people, done, put it together, collect all the components, prepare the draft. Then typically what is happening with my case, I get the draft that my students wrote and I read it and write on it some more. Then a third person looks at it. All members comment on that draft, me and the students, and then create a final version. That is the one, go to the journal for review. Fine. So that's my technical talk. Let me take a minute, talk about IEEE. I, as a candidate for IEEE president, like to see IEEE being broader, meaning it has to understand what's happening around the world. COVID-19 is a good example. Because of COVID-19, I'm not there. I am in the US, you're in Japan, Malaysia, China, India, Pakistan, all of that. Good. The good thing is, because of the situation not being able to travel, we are doing things virtually. Fine. That has given us more opportunities for collaboration, cooperation, build a good community. I would hope IEEE will keep that spirit when the COVID-19 is over. We should not go back to old ways. We should use this technology like Zoom or Microsoft Team or whatever it is, Google Talk. Whatever. So I want to see that going on so that we are more connected. For that to happen, people in many parts of the world, they're Malaysia, Pakistan, Singapore, India, Tokyo, Japan, Bangladesh, should feel they're equally important in IEEE. Otherwise, you don't feel ownership. Those are important that I will focus on if I become president. So this is the last slide. I'm a candidate. Somebody asked this question before. This is where you vote. IEEE.org/elections. Vote there. I have also given my own website at the bottom, srahman.org. The paper, the talk I just gave, the slides will be available from that as well. And also you can go to IEEE TV, get an audio plus video of my presentation. I'll stop here, Ahad, and stop sharing the screen or keep it here. You can, or we can now start the Q&A.
Thank you, sir. It's a wonderful, scintillating presentation and lots of information that will be helpful for the participants. So we have about 10 questions from the chat. So I will read one by one. And meanwhile, there are 2 hand raised. So I'll allow them after some, mixed. So some from the chat and some from the audience. So the first question came from Fardib al-Islam. I have a question. We can compare the results with other existing methods in the paper in result section, but when we would do a new work or use a new data set in the work, then how can we compare the obtained result with others?
Good question. What I meant to say, the published papers that you have reviewed have given results, not the data, results. What is the result? That I am an author before you publish your paper, did some experiment, again, electric power load forecasting, and I found on an average basis, my errors are 5% for my data set. In your case, you have your own data set. You create your results, your own data set, and see how errors are showing up. If they're more than 5%, you have to figure out a way to make it better. But it's not, you're right, not the same data set, because we talk about forecasting for power companies, but traditionally speaking, globally speaking, the trend is very similar. So the reason why we have high load in the summer in Tokyo or Dhaka or Karachi or Washington, DC or Moscow, same reason. High temperature, high humidity. That means even though data sets are different, they have similar characteristics. So that's how you do your data set. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Sarah Choudhury. It's about one of the initial slides on Authenticate. She wrote that review papers are from different papers. Systematic literature review, it is also from different papers. What is a literature review? That's why. So something like this, yeah, please.
Very good question. The review, 2 issues here, if I get it right. One is review paper. Do not write review paper, do not write it anymore. We don't accept review papers anymore. Why? Review paper 20 years ago had a value because there's no Google, no internet. All I have to do to learn something, go to a library and look at 10 journals and summarize. You as an author can help me by doing that work yourself, not me. Write a review paper for 50 papers and give me a summary. That helps me and my student understand the technology. But now I go to Google and get 100 papers. I don't need your help anymore. So we do not accept review papers anymore. Do not do that. Now the question is review section in the paper yourself. In a review paper, review section, where you summarize using 30 or so references what work has been done already, that you are doing something different. That's the review part I'm talking about. Hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Okay, the next question is from Talha bin Imran. What about the MDPI series journals, which send the decisions, including accept, reviews, comments with editors' comments within 1 month?
Those are, I don't trust them very much. They are very anxious to publish your paper. Because of that, they change the marketplace. They say, come to us, we are so quick, give you 1 month result. For me, it will take 3-4 months, because maybe 2 months, because we go thorough review process. Those guys giving you a result in a month, they have not reviewed your paper very well. That means, yes, you get tempted, you accept it, you publish there, but I can tell you for sure that journal has very low impact factor, if any. That means it's very unlikely many people read your paper, because it is not a well-known journal. So do not fall for that. Thank you.
The next question is from Shoaib Dostagir. Please guide some key points also about how to write a review paper.
I said, don't write a review paper. Don't write it.
Okay, the next question from Muhammad Khalid Hussain, that what does it means banned author? Could I request you to explain it a little bit more? And another participants mentioned that, how can I know that one of my co-authors is from the banned list? So,
okay, first 2 questions. What is the banned author? We get many papers from many people, and we look at their performance. There are some people, unfortunately, who copy things from other people and try to publish. They do not finish their experiment and send results claiming it is done. And we find out later on it is not done. So based on the comments we get from community, we get these criticisms. Then we go back to the author, ask those questions, why you did it. If you don't get a good answer, we will put the author on a banned author list. Is it 1-year ban, 3-year ban, 5-year ban? I don't see anything more than 5 years. That list is with us, not in public list. Publicly, we don't want to shame anybody. That is not published. We know this. Now, you know if you are banned because you have had communication from IEEE multiple months before you are on the banned author list. You know that for sure. Then the second question was, how do I know that author on the banned list? You don't know. It's a good question. So be upfront that this was brought to our attention, that if one of the authors is a banned author, people will be rejected with a review. So please, sir, or my friend, my brother, let me know if you're on the banned author list. If you are, I want to be aware of this. So you ask that question. There's no public database. We don't do that. Next question.
Sania Jahan, can you make the question very short, please?
Yes. So I have a question. You just suggested that we should write in third person, I guess, but here in UWA, we are suggested to write always in third person, first person. So it's kind of conflicting. So could you please explain a bit more which one is the best practice? Writing a paper in first person?
Right. I prefer third person because it sounds arrogant. I did this, we did this. Doesn't sound good. It's not very, it's kind of trying to practice your own bands. I don't like that. But yes, people do first person, but more of the examples I've seen is it was done. It was done, it was found. That way, you are not saying I did it. It was meaning it's a team effort. So I prefer we as opposed to I, if you have to use first person, but very rare, paper has single author. That's the whole idea, very rare, single author. You have a team member. So that's why I don't use I. If you say it was done, that implies it was done as a team effort. That's why I prefer the third person. But anyway, first acceptable, but I don't like that for that reason. I
Thank
see
you.
one question quickly.
Sir, we
Go
have
ahead.
actually, I am listing all the questions from the beginning, so don't worry about any missing question. Nothing will be missed. So we have more than 20 questions. So I'm reading one by one, and in between I'll allow some raise hand. So the question from Ashik Ahmed: most of the times we don't have the luxury of experimental setups. How should we convince the reviewers about our works, which is based on simulation alone? Nice.
That is true. I have same issue myself. I do experiment, not a problem for myself personally, but I've seen that happen with other professors. More and more, I see reviewers asking for field results more and more. That's because simulation is okay. Reason is the following. People in industry, they want to see results that are usable by them. That's why they want to make connection to real world data. So it is, I guess, not possible for everybody to do data for some source, or if not your building, similar buildings, then your simulation has more value. So I would spend time looking for results given by other. Example, I have done myself recently in my group. We are doing work on electric vehicle load profile and how that impacts the building load. We have no electric vehicle in the building. So what do? We looked in the literature extensively, found publication by other universities who have real data that they have discussed in their paper. So we have got their data, some publish the data itself on their database. And now, even though I did not do the experiment myself, somebody else did it, and we have real data. That way my paper is more down to earth. So I suggest, in the absence of your own experiment, look for data from other sources. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Nursadul Mamun. This is, does it, I mean, paid or non-paid, has any effect on acceptance?
No, as I said before, when you go to a journal, the reviewers are looking at a paper, well, two options. One is hybrid, meaning it's a journal which is mostly closed papers, some open papers. If you go to that journal, goes to reviewer your paper, reviewer doesn't know whether you want to pay or not. He doesn't know that. We haven't asked you that question. How we know this? We, meaning the EIC knows it because when you submit the paper, it's a box. Do you want to prepay the paper? It's a box. If you don't check the box, no problem. If you check the box, only he or she knows it. The reviewer doesn't know that. So they are looking at a paper, assuming it is not prepaid. That's one answer. Second is, you go to a journal which is open access to begin with. That means all papers are accepted and then to be paid for. There's no difference, right? Your paper, other 5 papers that are going through the review process, all will be prepaid if and when it is accepted first. So that's why there's no double standard, I guess. Thank you.
Just the next question is from Sania Jahan. In University of, oh, she already asked about the first person and third person. Okay, Muhammad Ismail Hussain from Hong Kong Polytech University. Thanks for the wonderful talk. Could you please explain a bit how much or portion we are allowed to use in the new manuscript from our own papers?
Yeah, your new paper should have at least 40% new content, 40% new content. So if you have a 5-page paper for a conference, you can use most of it, but you must add more results from other experiments. so that it is different than the other paper. Why that is important? Once a paper is accepted for a conference, it goes to the conference proceedings, available through IEEE Explore. It's open, right? It's available. I am a university professor. I go to my online library, see your conference paper. Then after a few months, same paper shows up as journal paper. Then I say, what's going on? I'm paying twice for the same paper. That's why I want to see the new paper for the journal has 40% or so new content, including new results. That's the distinction. Thanks.
Okay, now I allow Mr. Tassin to ask a question, please. Short.
Thank you. Sir, it was an amazing session. You described the topics beautifully. I have actually two questions. The first one is, how are the reviewers actually selected? I mean, at least in case of IEEE, how are the reviewers selected? And the second question is, you mentioned fraudulent activities in the research work. How do you actually detect such activities, like making up data or something like that? So how do you actually detect them? These are the two questions.
First question, how we select reviewers. Very good question. Yes. We have, as I said, Smart Grid Journal, 50 editors and maybe 500 reviewers, 500. How do you select them? This is mainly by word of mouth. We know people in communities. Also, sometimes journals will advertise for reviewers. We do that sometimes. We need high pressure for papers. We ask you to submit a small bio and your publication history, so we know that you have published in well-known places. So you have some experiment and experience in this business. So we wouldn't just pick somebody up that review this paper for me. The reviewer must have established credentials to do this. That's how we do this. Second is how do you know it's fraud? We don't know in many cases, but it is usually found out after paper is published. Example I give you. I was VP publication for Power Energy Society. I also did a conference in China on power system areas. So I saw a paper came in, we reviewed it, looked fine, published it. Then we found out when we published, the other author, who is the original author of this previously published paper, pointed to us, look, the new paper you accepted and published in the conference copied the stuff from me. That's fraud. That's what I mean, how we find these things. Normally do not. If you are unlucky as an author, one of the reviewers might know the work that has been done in the past, and they will bring out the history and what you are presenting. There's no one formula, but it happens because we know each other, we know each other's work in the community. That's how we find this. Good question. Next one.
Thank you so much.
Mullah Rashid Hussain, MD Hassan Imam Bijoy, can I ask more than 250 words in abstract, depending on conference or journal? Can I use more than 250 words?
Typically not. 250 is a guide, cannot be, suppose you are 260, that's okay, but not 400. So use your judgment. That's a target number, 250, 200. And that's because like abstract should be a third of a page and a 2-column setup. That's why. Because abstract is too long, then the reader say, another thing is very practically important. Abstract is public, right? Public meaning it is available free of cost to anybody. If you write 1-page abstract, then they would know your paper almost in full. They are not going to buy your paper or pay subscription to read your paper because abstract is public. It has all the information you need. So don't do that for that reason as well.
Okay, the next question is about for Mullah Rashid Hussain, sir. Dear sir, what is your thoughts regarding the citation of unreviewed preprints in our papers?
Yeah, do not cite unreviewed material. Well, let me go back a little bit. It happens today because there are many databases now where people submit their paper for before review for comments. It happens. So if it is not reviewed, it's not published, you don't have a citation data for it. You cannot say, I cite this paper because it is in the database where preprints are submitted for knowledge sharing purposes. So I do not do that because why? With a simple reason, the paper that is floating around in public space has not been reviewed. So how do I know results they claim are correct, right? They could be all fake. So why contaminate yourself using fake information? That's the problem. I don't like that for that reason. It could be fake because nobody has looked at it and commented on it.
Yeah, the next question is from Sheikh Tamjidur Rahman. Sir, what should be the focus points for new researchers?
Depends where you are. It's a very broad question. If you are a EE student, PhD working, you are at a university, you have a professor, you have some coursework information, so that's hard to answer. I mean, it could be anything. It could be machines, smart grid, power electronics, it could be power systems, it could be renewable energy. It's hard to answer. I would suggest you are a student, hopefully at a university that you're doing your PhD, let's say, talk to a professor, they will give you some guidance. That's the professor's job. That's why he or she is there, to guide you on research topics. So that's a difficult question to answer. Next one.
From Shahriar, many journals asked for providing referee or reference, names. My question is, how can I select best reference?
Well, two things happen. It happens for newer journals because they don't have a list of reviewers. So they ask your help to find reviewers that review your paper. Because the biggest challenge for a new journal, especially not very well known, they have no community presence. People don't know them. Not many people are reviewing for them. They're hurting for reviewers. So that's why they ask you for reference. That's fine. Give them people that you know who are working in the same field. Hopefully they will appreciate your work. So that's fine. Do that.
Okay, so I request Dr. Rajaul Karim to ask his question. Oh, Rajaul Azim. Professor Azim, are you here?
Okay. So this, thank you, sir, for your nice presentation. I have a simple question, sir. Many of the journal during the pre-submission, they ask for the English correction or proofreading by the native speaker. So is it ethical?
Well, we have done that too. I don't like it. I am not a native speaker English, but I write very well. So there you know. So it doesn't disqualify me because I'm not native born English speaker. So what I say, I have the same comment, that please have your paper reviewed by somebody who has experience in writing papers. Not just the English part of it, is the context, is the synonyms, how you say things. That's important. I've seen in many cases, papers come back with such a poor English, not just language issue, it's the way they present it. Because of the cultural things, because of the background, the reviewer gets frustrated. So we have difficulty getting reviewers to review papers. Then you get in front of them some papers who are difficult to read, reviewers get very upset. I will not going to review your paper for the journal anymore because you send me papers that I cannot make sense out of it. So this is a simple example. There's a native speakers. That's not my recommendation, but yes, let somebody else, I said already in my talk this morning or this evening, that let somebody else read the paper and make comments for you.
Okay, the next question is from Liton Chandra Paul. As a young researcher, how to choose good and effective research topic? Please explain. Again,
I just told already, answer that question. You should talk to your professor.
From Labanna, the question is, how a young researcher can be focused on writing a research paper? What should avoid must when I'm writing a paper for the first time?
Well, just go through my lecture today. I said you should know, first of all, the journals paper published in the last year or so, let's say. Then you know this journal is relevant for you or not, right? Because they have published in the same field, number one. Number two, you do an extensive literature search to see what work has been done already. Because if you missed something that is already published, most likely the reviewer would know that and your paper will be rejected because it is nothing new. So point is, know the ground around you and bring up your paper as a unique contribution to add value to what has been done already. So that would be your context. So I hope that makes sense. Next one.
Mahili Ahmed, if I want to show that my work achieves a better result than existing works, then I have to compare my work with those works. If I do not get the data they have used for their work, then what should I do?
As I said already, I answered that question. Answer is, you are in a given area, like electric power load forecasting. It's true that the author of the other article used their own data. It's true. But in the business we are in, there are certain similarities. So you said Moscow, Delhi, Kuala Lumpur, Dhaka, Karachi, doesn't matter, Tokyo. Electric load on a hot summer afternoon is governed by temperature, humidity, and building occupancy, regardless where you are, doesn't matter. So he uses Moscow data, example, you're using Tokyo data. It's perfectly fine. Moscow data showed 5% error, your Tokyo data shows 2% error. Load forecasting for a hot summer afternoon, perfectly fine.
The next question is from Sheikh Tamjidur Rahman. What are the trending topics that you will recommend to work on? Very broad.
We answered that question already.
Yeah. So the next question is Muhammad Hassan Imam Bijoy. How many authors can be on a survey research paper? And what is a good number for authors?
First of all, don't write a survey research paper to begin with. Second is, I recommend not more than 4 authors, 4 or 5. If you put 10 people on the authors list, hard to figure out who did what. So that is why I prefer 4 or 5 people on a paper so that we know their contributions are unique. So answer is typically not more than 4 or 5. Thanks.
The next one from MD Sabir Hussain. What should authors include in the methodology section? Is there any general instruction to write methodology section?
No, methodology is part of an experiment. You have an experiment, it's a method. That's you know that already. What is the method you use to run the experiment? So that's the methodology part. That's you know that, otherwise your experiment is not done, right?
So then from Naushad Amin, Salam, his views on citations and H index of researchers. It has become a bit bad practice nowadays for evaluating for any post or promotion. How can we get out of this situation?
You cannot. H index has a value, and some people abuse it, but generally speaking, H index means how many of your papers have been cited that many times, right? H index 10 means 10 of your papers have been reviewed, have been cited by 10 other authors. But some people play games on age number. They have their paper cited by other people, their friends. Number 2, they are publishing in one journal and they are using their, I guess, influence to make authors cite their paper. So that is some abuse, but overall it's well understood and not abused too much. I would not worry about that part. So please try to have a good paper published so your H index goes up.
The next question is from, sir, is it okay to take some more minutes from you? Because we have another maybe 10 questions or so.
I'm okay. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. MD Nurul Muttaqin, what can I do when one of the reviewers misinterpret my paper? How to fight?
No, that's a good point. That happens all the time. You have got reviews back from the editor. You have 3 reviews. 2 of them are pretty good. 1 is not so good. For that reason alone, your paper would not be rejected. Most likely, you will get a revise and resubmit option. But take the worst case, got rejected. It's possible because the EIC thought the person who gave the critical comments is very well-known person. His comments carry more weight than the other 2 reviewers. Possible. Then it gets rejected. Then what do you do? Rejected has 2 options. You can forget that journal, go somewhere else, or come back to the same journal explaining what you have done in addition to what was done in the first paper, and explain maybe when the reviewer rejects it or reviewer makes comments, they'll tell why they make the comment. They can tell the reviewer missed what you said. I said already in my presentation. Paper get rejected because they don't understand what you said. It's your responsibility to take the time, rewrite it, maybe have a colleague look at it and make it clear. So both of you are right. You wrote you think is good. The other reviewer misunderstood because he failed to understand what you said. So help him to understand for the second time. That should be good for you going forward. Thanks.
The next question is from Muhammad Raed. Or Raid. Sir, can you tell us about white papers? For example, Bitcoin white paper by Satoshi Nakamoto, which is not a peer-reviewed, but we know that it's a breakthrough innovation and cited heavily in the relevant research field. So white papers.
Well, white papers are not published, number 1. White papers is a survey of what's going on. White paper written by politicians, by policymakers, mainly, not us, policymakers. White paper means state of the art. What is happening in this business and what should be done to make the society more, I guess, more healthy, more relevant. So somebody writing a white paper on COVID, white paper, 50 pages white paper. That can be cited, but that's not a referred publication. It's 2 different things.
The next question is from Ahnaf. If a journal is not SCI indexed, then it doesn't have a JCR impact factor. My question is that what about other journals that are not SCI indexed? Are emerging SCI indexed journals or prospective journals good as well?
Well, yes, the SCI indexed journals have to go through some critical assessment. That's how they get into the SCI index. So if a new journal comes in, could be some people would put together a team and want to make money. That's why they are so aggressively telling you, I give you review in a month, all that. So stay away from those fake publications. Don't do that.
So the next question is from Muhammad Ilyas, Chaudhry Muhammad Ilyas. I think he asked, another question was related in the past, but still, if my paper is rejected due to the misinterpretation of the reviewer, and I have way to prove those misinterpretation correct through experiments, which required like 1 month, what should be the best possible ways in that case to submit the paper again to that journal? Is it possible to accept it again by the reviewer?
Yes, and that's what I said in the beginning of my talk. You must have missed it. You can revise it, do more experiments, send it back, but mention to the chief editor, this is a revised version of a paper that was rejected. Say that, do not hide it. Say that up front. Then the EIC will read your paper with more interest. Let me see what you have done different In fact, you should point out in a note form that the reviewer in the beginning rejected with the following comments. I've addressed them, did some more experiment to make my claim more solid, and I believe this is a good representation of the work we have done. Say that in writing. Then the editor takes it more seriously and will send it through for a second round of reviews. Yes, they will.
The next is from Muhammad, which is funny indeed, but if reviewer insists to cite their paper which is not relevant, what can be done?
That happens. That's for your bad luck. Some reviewers have ego. They think their paper is so good, everybody in the world should cite it. There are people like that, unfortunately. So if your paper got rejected because the reviewer said, you did not cite my paper, I fault the chief editor for that, not you or the reviewer. Reviewer has his own ego. That means the chief editor is careless or doesn't pay enough time to figure it out. So he or she sent through the reviewer's unsubstantiated comment because paper, as you said, not relevant to your work. And that is unfortunate. In that case, I would go to a different journal, not waste your time with these guys who are not talking sense. It happens. But that's life. What can you do?
Actually, 2 days before I got similar thing from, I'm guest editing in PRL, Pattern Recognition Letters of Elsevier. One of the reviewers wrote 5 of his references that authors must add those. Then we give the reviewers, I mean, not reviewers, the authors that you do not need to cite unless it is important. So it is, as you said, it is depending on the associate editor or editor-in-chief that, I mean, why we should, appreciate this. This is not good. Anyway, from Khadija, would you please kindly tell that, is it a bad approach to use own citation of an author to his or her further research work related to this field?
No, it's typical. You have done some work already. You have published it. So you can give few of your paper citations in your list of references. But if you give 5 or 8 or 10, then people will say, if you have done so much work, why write another paper? It's common sense, right? You don't need another paper. You have done all work already. You got 10 publications on this field already. So 2 or 3 is good, no more than that.
Okay, Sriman Bidhan Baroy, can you please ask a question?
Sir, in one of your previous seminars, you said professors don't expect quality papers from undergraduate students, the deep knowledge we don't know. So my question is, does it affect being an undergraduate student, having no background, your paper acceptance?
No, I didn't say that. What I meant is when we review the paper, we look at the name and the institution. We do not ask your undergraduate. We don't even know. We don't even know. But what I said is, if you're undergraduate, you may not have done enough literature review. You got excited. That's what happens with your work. You got excited. We do not know somebody has also got excited 3 years ago and wrote the same paper. So that's my point. That's what I say. You misunderstood me. That you should don't get excited and write the paper. You do your due diligence. I said, reference check, reviews, comments, then you submit it. So we don't know your undergrad. We have no idea. We don't ask that question. We don't know that.
Now, Pranto Chaudhuri, in literature review, how many papers should we give minimum?
There's no minimum, but I would say about 10 or 12 because you're not Einstein. That means you have not done something fundamentally new. Just be real. What does it mean? That means the people have done some work in that field already. And that you have to find that work. So that 10 is okay, minimum, but do not go over 30. Then it becomes too heavy on references.
The next question is from Lipon. Sir, should you focus more on the abstract or introduction part?
Both. Coming back, typically a reviewer first reads the title, of course, and the abstract, and then go to conclusions without reading the whole paper. Because introduction, no new information, right? You have the literature search, you have told what happened, and you're telling me what you are going to do in the introduction. You're not discussing results in the introduction, right? So that means the introduction is a packaging material, literally packaging material, not the core. Core is the abstract and conclusions and results on the way back. So people, the reviewers, read the title, abstract, conclusions, and they figure out whether this paper is worth spending time on. So that's why introduction is needed, but not as important. That doesn't mean you don't write introductions, of course not, but focus more on the abstract and conclusion part in your paper if you have to prioritize what you do first. Thank you.
The next question is from Sarah Chowdhury. If it is a preprint in archive database, but it has given some name like published in ACM volume 1, blah, blah, blah. Can we cite such paper which is told where to be published, but in the ACM it is not online yet?
No, no, it's not possible. This is what you said doesn't make sense. I'll tell you why. If you have that information, ACM volume 1, issue 6, it has been published already. Otherwise, that data cannot come out. The data means it has been published.
Yes. The next question is from Dr. Belayat Hussain, that what is your advice to prepare paper for IEEE transaction journal? What level of novelty they expect?
That's a judgment call. It's a relationship. It's a relationship because IEEE transactions are very diverse reputation. Some are 1917 impact factor, some are 0.5. So it's hard to answer that question, depending on where you are going with your presentation. So all I can say as a judgment issue, look at your paper and look at what has been published in that journal last few issues. So read that, spend the time. And see the level of depth and the quality in those published papers and your paper. I know you are biased by definition. You wrote the paper. You think you're the best thing in the world. But be objective as much as you can. Maybe you can talk to a colleague of yours, maybe a student, maybe a faculty member, and tell them, sir, I read these 3-4 papers, they are here. I am going to submit my paper, which is like this. And can you make some comments about the usability of my paper or the effectiveness of my paper compared to what has been published? Because that is what the reviewers are looking for, right? That's what they're looking for. They are experts, they know these things. So that's why I said in my title, effective. We read papers. 1 hour spent with you is to hammer that issue, what is effective? Because I want you to be successful when you submit a paper. When you do your homework, don't rush it, so that you have covered the possible questions reviewer might ask in their own mind when they read your paper. If you answer their questions in your presentation before they ask it, you have a good chance of being accepted. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. So I'll take just 3-4 questions. So Imrul Kausar Shoheb, can you ask, please?
Yes, thanks for giving me opportunity to ask a question. First of all, please forgive any mistakes from me. I think I am the youngest audience of today's webinar. I am a first year student of textile engineering. Would you please tell me in shortly, if I want to write any paper later, how I should prepare myself from first year?
do some experiments and keep record of your data, and this, and again, work in a community, not by yourself. Community meaning your professors, your colleagues, share the data with them, because what feedback you get from them is important for you to present your result in a more understandable way. That's the community feedback benefit. So that's the answer to your question. Talk to your professors, other students, do experiments, write results, and discuss results with your fellow student colleagues. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
The next question is from Ahnaf. Does second author contribute more than the third author?
Typically, yes. Typically, yes. That's how the recording goes. The first author does most of the work, and second, third, fourth authors do less or otherwise order. I have done, my students, they come in and they have 3 of their colleagues on the author list. I ask the same question, who did how much work? And sometimes based on the answer I get, I change the order, because that's what it means. Number 1 is most contributing, number 2 next, and so on and so forth. Yes. Sometimes you get political pressure from your professor or somebody else. That's something I cannot handle.
Yes. The next question is from Umair Yunus. Just he wrote a paper, and one of his friends or co-authors submit the paper in some non-indexed local journal by removing my name. Can you please suggest me now how to claim the originality of my work, or may I publish the same work in internationally reputed indexed journal after modifications?
It happens. That means your quote unquote friends are not really your friends. They cheated you. That's what happened. So your paper has not been published yet. It's a fact, right? Other has been published. Maybe not reputed journal hasn't published. It is being available in the open literature now. Then, by definition, they will say the work that has been published already takes preference. It happened globally. You know, somebody from Bangladesh, famous scientists, Jagadish Chandra Bosu and Marconi. Many claim Jagadish Chandra Bosu did more work than Marconi for radio telephony. Marconi got the credit, but he published it first. He got the patent first. So Jagadish maybe felt cheated, I didn't do it, but that's life. So in your case, what I suggest, you said it already to some extent, do more work. It's unfortunate, your friend stole your work and published it. It happened. So how you deal with it, don't get frustrated, do more work. Then it goes to a better known journal. They will see that they would know the other paper already. They don't know their friend cheated you. They have no idea because your name is not on the list, right? They have no idea. But they will compare your paper that you submitted to the other one that they know about and see you have added content, more experiment that makes your paper freestanding. I said, if you follow my talk, 3 or 4 slides from the beginning, extension of previously published, extension. That's the extra work you did. Thank you.
I would like to request Professor Shahriar Khan to ask his question.
Thank you very much, Professor Saifur Rahman. You have addressed probably the most important issue, which is close to us, close to our heart. And I'm sure everybody has benefited very much from that. I'd just like to add that this is the kind of work you have done in the past. And also you have been the president of PES for 2 terms, which has been a position which has been occupied by Alexander Graham Bell and Thomas Edison. So it is indeed it is a privilege that we have somebody like you talking to all of us for our benefit. And we just hope that your work continues in important positions in IEEE in the coming days. Like you said, the elections are going on. We hope everybody participates, and we hope to see you in a good position in future. Thank you very much, sir. Professor
Thank you.
Saifur.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Khan. The next question, one of the last questions very quickly. If anybody has question, please just type quickly. Then Mahit Kumar Paul, he wrote, are all SCI Mago journals good journals?
Well, yes or no, depending on your field. A good journal is not just the index, how well it is used. I said already, for example, I have said IEEE also uses a different metric, which is downloads. If people are paying to read your paper, that means they found your paper useful, correct? So index is fine, but download data is also, it's not published by the way, but your professor, others should know because we know the community and we are used to exchanging ideas. So again, you are not working in a closed environment. You are dealing with the community around you. So talk to people and see what else or what other journals are relevant to your work. Okay, thank you. Next one.
The next one is from Beijing Jiangtong University, Mr. Lipon, or doctor, I don't know. But if my paper has been accepted at a conference and the presentation is not good, after that, will it be published or not?
No. If your paper has been accepted for a conference, you make a presentation. You could totally mess it up, the presentation. It'll be published already. The policy is, paper has been accepted, it must be presented. We don't ask how good the presentation was. They don't ask that question. It is presented, that's it. It will be published by definition. It has to be published.
Okay, the last question I take from a student, I guess, MD Nazmul Islam. Which journal is best for Bangladeshi student?
You can answer that, Ahad, I don't know. You can answer that.
Anyway, I mean, you can ask me separately and I will know your level of work and what kind of works you are doing. And then I may just help you something, some names or something. Thank you. So, okay, just another question from Masood Rabbani. This is, has any way to reserve or anything before getting the proper result when we start our work so that we can publish our work after getting the result? Not perfectly clear, but I mean, you want to preserve something before publishing or?
Well, I think what he means, should we give all the results in one paper? Reserve something, and that happens. You have done extensive piece of work and do not use all the results in one paper. Keep some for a future paper, or it may be that the reviewers have additional questions that would be clearer to them if you give more results. Then you come back, paper came to you as revised and resubmit. You don't have to spend time doing more experiments. You can add the other results to this current paper and make it more complete. That happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we have taken 1 hour and 40 minutes, almost 100 minutes from you. And you are so kind to give us this time. So I'd like to thank you so much, Professor Saifur Rahman. I mean, we already understood all the participants that he's such an amazing guy, very kind, humble, friendly, and very pinpointedly answered even a trivial question, everything, so which is amazing. And in future, I know that he is very busy, but in future I'll request him for his time to have some kind of research related webinar so that we can get more knowledge from him as well. And with that, I'd like to thank all the participants. We had more than 250 participants always, most of the time. So that is wonderful. And Professor Saifur Rahman, we wish you the best and we hope that your IEEE President-elect 2020 will be very positive and as you want to win. So we pray for you and wish you the best. And what a wonderful and valuable session it has been. And for the participants, stay safe and strong. And definitely the video will be shared in the event page, in the Facebook, and also YouTube shortly. So with that, thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate your presence, and good luck to everybody. And we will enjoy the rest of the evening. And again said, if you have any questions, Ahad will give you how to deal with that situation. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you so much, sir.
Bye-bye.